7 days of unleavened bread. That's volumes. If we could only really grasp and understand all that is pictured through these days. And the reality is we don't. But what we understand is because God gave it to us, and that in itself is absolutely incredible. So here we are on the last day, the 7th, the last day of the days of unleavened bread. And any way you want to look at it, what an awesome and loving God we worship. We didn't think of these days. He gave them to us. He gave them to us. And then He told us all the things that He wants us to get from it. And it's a lot. One thing, of course, we understand is we know that ancient Israel, the children of Israel, crossed through the Red Sea, leaving Egypt behind on the last day of unleavened bread. So I want to start by asking, do we know the purpose of the Exodus from Egypt? In other words, why did Israel leave Egypt? And if you said, well, it was to free the Israelites from slavery, or it was to save them from the oppression and the suffering that the Egyptians were placing upon them. And all of that is true. And if you answered anything similar to that, then you probably would be in line with about 99% of those answering the question. And yet, I think all of us, of course, would want to know the answer from God. How would He answer that question? And here's the thing. The fact is, He did give His answer. He told us. He told us in the Scriptures why Israel left Egypt. And that's symbolic of us being delivered out of our oppression of sin and bondage. I have entitled the message, Why Israel Left Egypt. So, we want to know what God's answer is, and so let's get right to it. So go with me to the book of Exodus, chapter 6, Exodus 6. Beginning in verse 1. Now I'm going to say here, I really appreciated Mr. Pinkerman's offertory message because it ties in to this sermon. I didn't have my pen ready, but I would have written down several statements that he made. So what I'm going to say is, other than the offering part, I'm not taking up an offering. He did an excellent job in that. But the leading up to that, all he said, put it right here. Put it right here. So let's go to Exodus chapter 6, verse 1. Then the Lord said unto Moses, Now shall you see what I will do to Pharaoh. Wow. Now you're going to see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. For with a stretched out hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. Now, did that happen? Yeah, it did happen. It did happen. Verse 2. And God spoke unto Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord. And I appeared unto Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob by the name of God Almighty, but my name Jehovah or Yahweh, the I am that I am, was not known to them. Now, there's a lot of information in that, and that's really an incredible subject whenever you really stop and think about it. But anyway, let's go on. And I have also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians kept in bondage. And I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore, or therefore, say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I am Yahweh. I am that I am. I'm the ever-listing one. I'm the, always been around. I will always be here. It's that kind of thing. And there is no one before me. There's all kinds of verses that come in mind here. But he says, you start off telling them what I'm going to do, and you start off by telling them, I am the Lord. And we notice there are several and I wills, and these are incredible statements. I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the bondage of the Egyptians. Wow, thank you, God. And I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people. Did he do that? Yeah. That's what he wanted to do. And I will be to you a God, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God, which brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will bring you into the land concerning the which I did swear to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and I will give it to you for an inheritance. Now, it's not stated here, but there is understood, because I am God. I am the Lord God. Wow. I mean, just any way you want to look at this is from the very beginning. Moses had not at this point even gone back to Israel. And God is already telling him, this is what I'm going to do. And when you get there, this is what I want you to tell them. And you start off by saying, I'm God, and implying from that a lot of things, inferring that I can carry out what I said I'm going to do. And then he proceeds to do this. So what we see is God brought Israel out of Egypt, and he did it to create a relationship with his chosen people. Because see, here's the thing. God chose them. And it started way back with Abraham, and then it was given on to Isaac and then to Jacob. We know that. We read that. But he chose them. And you know the story. I mean, you know that. He tells Abraham, he says, I want you to get out of the land because I'm going to be your God. You're going to be a special people to all of the people of the earth. And he goes from there. God goes from there. And he wanted from that very moment to create a relationship with his chosen people, the children of Israel. That he started back with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You will be my people, and I will be your God. Brethren, please understand, that is a relationship. Let's remember, God promised. He gave his word. Do you think that he's going to always keep his word? Silly me, I think so. God promised to make Abraham's seed his people and to give them a land. Let's go back to Genesis 12. This is where he talks to Abram. His name had not yet been changed to Abraham. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 12 and read verses 1 and 2. Verse 1. Now the Lord has said unto Abram, get you out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house unto a land that I will show you. Now, I'm just interjecting a question. How many of us would have jumped up immediately and left? And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Let's also remember that Abraham's seed, the children of Israel, had lived in Egypt for some 430 years. Now, there's no indication that they were in slavery for all of that time. In fact, I think the indication is they were not in slavery all of that time. Now, we don't really know how long it was. There's different estimates of it, 212 years to 250 years. I don't know. We're not given the point. But we know that they were there for 330 years because Exodus 12 and verse 40 tells us so. Now I want you to go into the book of Exodus, this time Exodus chapter 1. Exodus 1, beginning in verse 7. And I'm going to read 7 through 13. This is Exodus 1, 7 through 13. I'm going to read these verses from the NIV. Exodus 1, verse 7. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful, and they multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. What a blessing. I mean, that's what he told Abraham. That's what he told him. This is going to happen. Verse 8. Then a new king to whom Joseph meant nothing. In other words, he wasn't known to him. Joseph, you know the story. He did all the incredible things from God's directions to take care of Egypt, and Egypt became really a great and prosperous land. A lot of it was through and because of God through Joseph. And this new king came to power in Egypt. Verse 9, look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So he was fearful. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been. You know, you're the king, you're responsible for all of these massive people. I can understand it. It's not the God thing, because we look to God. He didn't, and we know that. Verse 11. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built these cities, Pithon, Ramses, and as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more the Israelites were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. And the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. Hard. Now what we see is the children of Israel are slaves. Now I'm not going to go back there, but the point is, the reality is, God told Abraham this was going to happen. So this isn't new. It was just, they didn't, I don't know if they knew it, and if you just suddenly wake up one day and you're in slavery, how would you react? Probably like the Israelites. Now, what I want to interject here again, and I want us to remember that God wanted to create a relationship with his chosen people, Israel. And for God to do this, first, he had to reveal himself to them, because they didn't know God. And please understand, that was the purpose of the 10 plagues. We know this story. This is not new. There were these 10 plagues. And he tells them very plainly, so you will know that I am God. I'm going to give these 10 plagues so that you will know that I am God. It was to reveal himself to the Israelites, but in doing so, he also is revealing himself to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians. And each one of the 10 plagues revealed some aspect of the point that God is who he is, and that is that he is in total control. He is sovereign. And brethren, this is a major lesson that we are to learn from the 7 days of unleavened bread. And from Israel being delivered from Egypt. For example, we're not going to go through the 10 plagues. I'm going to make comment about 2 of them. The plague of lice, for example. It was the first plague that the Egyptian sorcerers could not duplicate. What did that show? It was showing that I am God. It was showing that God had control even over the tiniest creatures. Exodus 8 and verse 18. Exodus 8:18. And the magicians or the sorcerers did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice upon men and upon beasts. The plague of hail. Exodus 9 and verse 24. Exodus 9:24. And there was also hail, and fire mingled with the hail. We're going to come back to that phrase in just a moment. Was very grievous, such as was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. They had never, it's saying, we've never seen anything like this. The Orthodox Jewish Bible or Orthodox Jewish translations uses that phrase, fire flaming amid the hail. What that is showing us is that while these godless Egyptians had a different God for each natural force, and it says, we've never seen anything like that. The one and only God, the God of Israel, controlled all, even competing forces like rain and the lightning. That's what this phrase means, fire flaming amid the hail. And they said, we've never seen anything like this. And we could go through all 10 of them, and of course the one we all know, of course, is the death of the firstborn. And I'm not even going to really go into that because we know this. So I want to state here, this relationship that God was establishing with Abraham's seed, these slaves, the children of Israel, was a relationship of love. Therefore, he had to show them that he saw and that he cared about their affliction. He had to reveal himself to them, and he did that through the plagues. And he had to show them, demonstrate to them that he cared about them. He saw, he understood what they were going through. And so the Israelites had to feel taken care of by God. And we just saw 2 points, and I want to restate them here. The first one is God is in total control over everything. 10 plagues demonstrated that. And the second point I want to state that we have just seen is that God cares about his people. Putting it in the context of this point, that it's a relationship of love, God cares about his people because He loved them. Yes, he was God. He loves all people. But right now, he's dealing with Abraham's seeds. He's dealing with the children of Israel who are in slavery that he allowed to happen, that he told Abraham some 430 years or so ago, earlier back, that it was going to happen. He also, God told Abraham the end result of what was going to happen. So the Israelites had to feel taken care of by God. And yet, please understand, and this is a big point, the relief from their suffering, their freedom from their slavery, was not the goal of the Exodus. I'm going to repeat that. The relief from their suffering, their freedom from their slavery, was not the goal of the Exodus. And I know sometimes we can hear something like this and go, oh, I thought that was why he brought them out. He brought them out to create a relationship. That's what we've already established. It wasn't just to free them. Now, of course, we do realize it was necessary for the purpose of establishing this relationship, the true goal of the Exodus. He had to bring them out. I think most of us can identify, or at least to some degree, with the slavery and the liberation of the black slaves in our U.S. history, with the slavery and liberation of the children of Israel. We can make a comparison. I think we can do that. And yet, at the same time, I want us to understand there is a vast difference between the two. I'm not making light of what the black people went through in this horrible slavery that they went through in this country and in other countries. I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying we can understand, to kind of draw together, but there is a vast difference. The differences can be seen when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January the 1st, 1883, that freed the black slaves. His purpose was to free them from slavery, not to establish a relationship with them. That was the purpose. And it was a necessary purpose, and it was a right purpose, and it was good. But there is a difference between these two slaveries. So I want us to understand, I want us to realize with God, the greatest good is not relief from slavery or from suffering, but rather a joining, a connection, a relationship with God. And we learn that often involves some degree of suffering. I mean, we are told that we have to use the term, have to go through the sufferings of Christ. And we see that in several different passages. Now, I'm not going to read any, but I am going to at least reference one, and you can put it in your notes, and you can, either you already know it or you can look it up later. And that is in 1 Peter 2 and verse 21. It says, we're going to suffer. We're going to suffer the sufferings of Christ. And all of this, the sufferings that we go through and the sufferings of Christ, please understand, through that we are delivered from sin and death. The goal is not, the simple goal is not to do away with the suffering. We're asked to go through it. The lesson is Israel had to go through that. And we know, of course, we're told by Paul, 1 Corinthians, I don't have it in my notes, 10, verse 11, I think, where he says, all these things happened to them for us. They went through all of this for us to learn lessons. And so whatever they went through, we have to look at it and we go, what can I learn from this? Well, they went through suffering. We're told to go through the sufferings of Christ. Duh, it's the same. It's a lesson. God's purpose in creating the world was in order to have a relationship with human beings. I've made this statement before, and that is, our mind starts tilting, like a pinball machine. We don't understand, but here are these two God beings who always existed. What are you talking about? Well, they always existed. Explain that. I just did. They always existed. And at some point in time, they changed their future reality by creating human beings to become just like they are. If that's not love, what is? I mean, whenever you understand that these two God beings are God and they are love, I mean, you can summarize them in one word, love. And so for the two of them together to create human beings out of flesh and blood and bone existence to become just like they are, to me, that's God's definition of love. Go with me to Genesis 1:26. You know this, Genesis 1:26. And God said, let us, it's not the royal we, it's us, it's two of them. This is father and son, even though they were not at that point father and son. Let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over all creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. Why did he do that? I mean, why did he because they're flesh and blood and bone. They're physical. God had control over everything. We already saw that through the lice. Even the tiniest little things, God is in charge. But he says, let's create these flesh and blood and bone, and let's call them human beings, and let's give them dominion over, control over these things. They're duplicating themselves in a limited sense by letting us be like God in some way. Now go to Genesis 2 and verse 7, NIV translation. Genesis 2 verse 7, then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So he said, let's do this, and then they did it. Why? Because God wanted a relationship. If we want to use another term here other than relationship, we could put in the word family. And family and love should be synonymous. But we live in a society and we live in a world that's not so. It should be. Because we were made in the image and the likeness of God. And so for us, it should be. And when you really think about it, there are only two states of being. Now, what I mean by two states of being, I mean being joined together or being separated. You may break it down in some other way, but it's either We're joined together or we're not. Being joined together or connected to God means, or we can see it in the same way that we are to be joined together and connected to our wife or husband and parents and children and friends and neighbors. We're to see that we're to be joined together. And we really stop and think about it, that is the purpose of life, is to be joined together, a relationship of love. It is also the purpose of the Exodus, a relationship. So another lesson that we can learn from the Exodus is learning to trust God in everything. And of course, we can interject, and of course, Israel never did. And of course, then we can add in with the question, but do I? And make it personal. You see, Brennan, from God's first revelation to Moses at the burning bush, that's in Exodus 3, verses 8 and 9. God made it clear, He made it very clear, that Israel's redemption did not mean just slavery to freedom. No, it meant an actual geographical relocation from Egypt to a promised land. The promise that was made to Abraham. I'm going to select you, and down the line there's going to be a whole group of people. They're going to be called the children of Israel, and I'm going to take them out of slavery, and I'm going to take them to this promised land where they can live out my laws, live my way of life. And they can do this, and so all the world can see and understand who I am. Did that happen? Of course not. Of course not. He promised them this physical land because this is where God was going to prove to them and show to them that He was going to take care of them. Like a husband, like a father, takes care of his family. It's a picture, brother. It's a picture. So when the children of Israel had journeyed around for 40 years in the wilderness because of their rebellion, because way back whenever they got to Kadesh Barnea, about 11-day journey out of Egypt, they're right on the border going to go into the promised land, and this is where the spies were sent in to do the land, and 12, one from each tribe went in, and 10 of them came back, and it said, and they gave a lying report. Is a better translation. They lied. It was a land flowing with milk and honey, and there were people that were bigger than they were, and they said, oh, we're like grasshoppers to them. No, they were not. And besides, as Caleb says, what does that have to do with the God's in charge? He can take care of us, which was the purpose. And they said, no, we don't want to go in. And so he says, okay, wander around for 40 years. And they did until that whole generation died out. You know that story. So here it is at the end of the 40 years of wandering, when the children of Israel came to the border of the land of Israel, ready to enter the land. At the end of the 40 years, notice what God says to them through Moses. Deuteronomy 11. verse 10, he's telling them what the land is like. For the land where you go in to possess is not as the land of Egypt, from whence you came out, where you sowed your seed and watered it with your foot as a garden of herbs. In other words, you could just punch a hole in the ground, put the seed in, and then cover it over with your foot, and it's going to get taken care of. It's going to be watered. This is what it's saying. But the land where you go to possess is a land of hills and valleys. And it is. Anybody else ever been to Israel? Well, it's a land of hills and valleys. I've read this before, and I said, oh yeah, okay, that's interesting. And when I went there, I found out it's a land of hills and valleys. There's ups and downs, and there are at least 5 different, I've heard since there were 7. I don't know. While I was there, I were told there are 5 growing regions in the country. I had the blessing to be able to travel the entire country looking at all of this. That's another story, but anyway, I've witnessed this, and so it's a land of milk and honey. I mean, it's a land of hills and valleys, and it drinks water of the rain of heaven. And that's interesting. And the rain can fall in one of these geographical locations and not in the other. Or it can fall in all 5 of them, or it can fall in none of them. That was not like Egypt. Yeah, it was not like, because you see, they had the Nile River. The Nile River watered Egypt, and it sustained its agriculture. Egypt had this elaborate irrigation system, and Egypt used this reliable water source to feed the people. And it was a blessing for those people to have that. And as the saying goes, then on the other side of the coin, or on the other hand, Israel, the promised land, had to depend on rain. And as we know, rain is unpredictable. I mean, think about it. Knowing exactly when the rain was going to fall, where the rain was going to fall, how much rain was going to fall, and whether it was going to fall as a gentle rain that was going to be easy to absorb into the ground, into the earth, or it was going to be a gush of rain that would flood and cause damage, all are unpredictable. That's the land they were going to go into. So a point that I want to make here, I think is very, very interesting to think about, and that is Nile-like consistency of rain, or not rain, but of the Nile, offers an illusion of control. However, the truth is, life is unpredictable, and no one really knows what is going to happen tomorrow. Therefore, as believers, us, part of the body of Jesus Christ today, the Church of God, our coming to admit there are uncertainties in our lives will lead us to acknowledge our total dependency on God. That is true spiritual freedom. And that was exactly God's purpose. And we can be like Israel. We can gripe and complain and mourn and all of that kind of nonsense or we can drop to our knees every time something is good, or drop to our knees every time something is not so good, and praise and thank God that He is in charge. Which is a major, major lesson of the days of unleavened bread. So another major lesson that we learn from the Exodus is learning to trust God in everything. And of course, Israel never did. Now, another lesson that we can see from the days of unleavened bread in Israel deliverance from Egypt is we must never give up hope. We must never give up hope. I mean, as we know, Israel was a superpower, the most advanced nation on the face of the earth at that time. And this oppressive government had absolute control over the life and death of its people, including the Israelites. Go with me to Exodus 1 in verse 22. Exodus 1 in verse 22, and we'll read this from the NIV. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. Total control of life and death. The Israelites, the children of Abraham's seed, they lived in Egyptian slavery for many years, starting with the order of genocide. If you really think about it, that's what that was, by throwing all the boys into the Nile River. I mean, I just have a question. Can we even imagine such a thing? It's hard to. But it's real. And yet, here's the thing. Apparently, this torture and this oppression continued the entire time the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt. And so however long that period of slavery was, this was going on. So by the time that God appeared to Moses at the burning bush, that generation of Israelites had lived their entire lives under the whip. Their only hope was that there would be a new government that would lighten their load. And yet, when the reigning Pharaoh died, we read his successor was just as cruel and oppressive, in some ways even more so. Exodus 1 verse 8, NIV, Exodus 1 verse 8, then a new king to whom Joseph meant nothing came to power in Egypt. Exodus 2:23, NIV, Exodus 2:23, during that long period the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. Do we think that God wasn't aware of it all the time? He was totally aware of it. The point is, the Israelites finally realized their only hope was God. And so they cried out to God in hopelessness. Brethren, believing in God shows us there is no situation, there is no diagnosis, there is no military threat that is beyond God's control. And my question to this is, do we believe this? Do we believe this? And the second part of that question is, do we live our lives with this in mind? This is a major lesson of the days of unleavened bread and the story of the children of Israel in Egypt and being delivered out. And of course, we know what God did. He immediately responded by appearing to Moses and promising them deliverance, redemption. Exodus 3, verse 7 through 9. Exodus 3, 7. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt. Let me go back and reemphasize. I have seen the affliction of my people. Just their crying out to him, God didn't wake up and go, oh, I need to go down and take care of these people. He's telling Moses, my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of the taskmasters or the slave masters, for I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up out of the land unto a good land and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites. Oh, it doesn't say that. It's the land of all these people who are in this land and they're trespassing. Verse 9, therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is coming to me, and I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. I know what is going on. So what God is stating through this is He wants a relationship. He wants a relationship. When Moses returned to Egypt with this incredible news of deliverance, what did he find among the Israelites? Well, he found a people that were broken and hopeless. And then God performed these incredible miracles and wonders. And then it was about, the estimated time is somewhere around 10 months or so later, they were free. Brethren, this mighty Egyptian superpower, again, we know the story. They were reduced to rubble, while the children of Israel walked out carrying the riches of Egypt like payment for their enslavement and bondage. Exodus 12, verse 36. Exodus 12, verse 36. I'm going to read this from the New King James Version. Exodus 12, 36. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they, the Egyptians, granted them, the Israelites, what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. That's what it says in the NIV. That's what it says in the New American Standard Bible. The King James says, spoiled the Egyptians. And I think all of the words are good words. What we need to remember is God is not limited by nature or physical. And we tend to think He is. God, if you could only do, what do you mean only do this? He could do whatever he says He's going to do. But we have to remember, He's always going to do it when the time is right for Him and for us, for His purpose. What is He working out? So therefore, we need to remember and realize that, again, no situation, no disease, no diagnosis, no military threat is beyond God's control. Nothing. Therefore, there is no room for hopelessness and despair in a God-run world. I mean, please realize, salvation can come in the blink of an eye. That's what it looks like in the story of Israel, because the proof of that statement, it can come in the blink of an eye, the proof is the Exodus from Egypt. Exodus 12, verse 40. Exodus 12, verse 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Israel was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. Verse 42, it was a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is the night of the Lord to be observed, and all the children of Israel in their generations. So we're to observe it. Whether we're physical or spiritual Israelites, we are still the people of God. And that's exactly what we did last Saturday night as the days of unleavened began. We did it, many of us did it right in that room, right in there. Verse 51, and it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. So what we see is that God used the blood of the Passover lamb to deliver the people from bondage in Egypt, obviously pointing forward to another Passover lamb that would deliver people. Not from physical slavery, but from spiritual slavery to sin and death. And what was the purpose for both these deliverers? Well, because the awesome and powerful and loving and merciful God, He wants a relationship. You go, is He ever going to get off this theme? And the answer is no, never. He wants a relationship with all those who choose to follow His way of life. He wants to have this relationship with all those who come to live life as instructed by our Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ. As we can see that He instructs us, it's over here in Matthew 22:37. You know this verse. Matthew 22:37. And the Lord said unto him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Please understand, brethren, to do this, to do what Jesus said here, to do this requires a relationship. We can do it as a matter of rote, or we can do it because we love God. We really do. Which was what was the theme all the way back from the beginning. So I ask, where is our heart and minds? Desiring to have a relationship with God? I pray so. I pray that's exactly where we are. And I stated this earlier, and I want to repeat it here at the end of this. Paul tells us all of this happened to Israel for us. It happened to them. They went through it. It's written down. It's recorded for us. This is the reason why the children of Israel were brought out of their Egyptian bondage. And brethren, this is also why we have been delivered from our personal bondage to sin and death. And all of this that I have talked about here today is pictured through the 7 days of unleavened bread. So again, I state to all of you, happy Holy Day. The Aaronic blessing. Do you see how important this really is? You know, I mean, do we need to do it every time? Well, I think so. Because I think we need to be reminded of what God is doing in our lives. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, speaking to Aaron and to his sons, saying, on this wise you shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Brother, we just went through and continuing to go through and all the way to sunset. 7 days of unleavened bread where God is proving to us over and over and over that he loves us, that he has blessed us, that we know things that others don't yet understand. And that's okay. The point is coming when they will. We are blessed now. I love you all very, very much. And thank you.